We are live on Twitch and YouTube as of right now.
Hi, YouTube.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin. We get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Happy Hump Day.
Ruben Bressler.
I don't need to be your second favorite too. All right, Evan. I don't need this kind of negativity in my life.
Look, man.
I'm getting it on all sides. I'm getting it from YouTube chat. I'm getting it from Twitch chat. I can't do it.
Oh man. You're in the back of the bus, buddy. It's okay. Somebody's got to be.
Come on, man. That's just like, I mean, when I went on long road trips, I preferred the back of the bus, but.
So,
you ever sit on a? Hold on, I just thought of this, and this is going to get random for about a minute and a half.
Here we
You're gonna have to live here. You're gonna have to live here with me. My sister and I had a discussion about this recently. You ever been on like a Greyhound or a long travel bus going on to like a school vacation that took you for like 8 hours, and you had those bus talkers? Like people that just wanted to talk to the bus driver and was like, "So, what's your life like for 8 hours?" I can't stand those people. I'm not about that. I'm not about the bus talk life.
Not about that life. Wow. Well, that certainly went in a weird direction.
You're welcome.
Well, speaking of weird, if not slightly odd, directions, and I think Ruben, you would be best equipped to sort of talk about this week's giveaway because it's kind of close to your heart.
Sure. This week's giveaway, everybody, is a copy of Xanathar's Guide to Everything. So Wizards of the Coast had one of their best years ever when it pertains to their other major released product, Dungeons and Dragons. So good, as a matter of fact, that their most recent expansion, Tomb of Annihilation, which came out over the summer, came out to rave reviews, and their most recent book, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, reached #1 on the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list.
Wow.
It qualifies as nonfiction because it's a rules supplement for a game.
So take that, Pioneer Woman.
Right, exactly. As opposed to it being real life. Don't worry, everyone. Xanathar, the Beholder crime boss, does not really exist in the fictional city of Waterdeep. Or non-fictional city of Waterdeep.
That's a relief.
Right.
In any case, Xanathar's Guide has a bunch of really cool, interesting stuff for dungeon masters and players alike. Has additional class options if you want to be playing your clerics or your druids or your rogues or your whatnot. For me personally, I run more games more often than not. And so it has a lot of interesting stuff to do with downtimes. It has a lot of interesting ways to garner experience points, different ways to use tools in the game of Dungeons and Dragons. It has a lot of interesting, fun, unique, different ways to impact and improve your game of D&D. They were sold out for a while.
Yeah, the
that's
first
how popular
run
they were.
Just flew out the door. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of D&D,
go ahead.
somebody had retweeted a joke into my feed that says it was from an LGBT author, and it says, looks at straight couple, but which one of you is the dungeon and which one is the dragon?
Yeah, that's great.
Nice.
Along those lines, there was another joke that was tweeted out in September. September was Bisexual Awareness Month. And so one of the accounts I follow said, September is Bisexual Awareness Month, so all bisexual characters have disadvantage on their stealth checks. I'm sorry, that's just the rules. Because awareness is a thing in D&D.
I've also seen references to polyamory as like basically forming your own party. Like, so which one's the bard? Which one's the tank? Which one?
That's
is
amazing.
Wow.
Which one's the tank? Which one's the ranged DPS? Yeah, I love that.
Wow. All right.
In any case, Xanathar's Guide is great, and you all should enter, and it's a delightful product.
So some stuff happened over this past week where, we had an episode where we tried to explain what was going on in the community. I feel this show exists so we can talk about the zeitgeist, and so this is what is happening. This is what people are talking about. Our first pick tonight is, of course, Wizards' response and sort of the suspension of many players. From an article called "The First Step," Elaine Chase talks about being in the community, and she says, like many other fan communities, Magic community is not immune to bullying and harassment. They're taking steps. They're calling people they're calling them on their behavior, and they're having them pay for those types of things. And essentially, We have Travis Wu getting a 1-year ban for his involvement with the Magic for Bad group. We have Jeremy of MTG headquarters fame receiving a lifetime ban without the potential of being appealed. Actual 0. So there's certainly, I think there's definitely a threshold that you have to hit, and when you hit that threshold, if you keep going and you hit sort of the other threshold, and then you keep going, you hit the other threshold, there's actions, there's there's consequences, and sometimes they're fairly significant, and I would call this pretty significant. I'm trying not to give too much fodder to those who can take quotes out of context and whatnot, and try to attack from different angles or whatever. I'm just noting that Travis notes that he wants to be a better Magic player. He wants to be a better community member. I believe that. I think Travis ultimately has a lot to work on, but I think he's good. At his heart, he's a good people. Like, I've always felt that way, and I've always just been like, please, don't do whatever he was doing. But there was also 12. There were 12 total bans. So not only did Jeremy get the lifetime, Travis got the 1 year. There were multiple, I think, 3-month or 6-month bans. 3 months for those who were participating.
Most of whom were participating in the Magic for Bad group in one way, shape, or form, particularly in the now infamous Pick One, Pack One photo thread that Aaron was a party to.
Which they didn't even use a good picture of.
I know that's the most upsetting part. I get it.
So many good selfies. I'm missing the point, aren't I?
Well, it's fine.
It's okay. It's like there's lots to be outraged about, but it's okay that you're outraged about that one.
I didn't have a chance.
I'm just saying. Okay, so in any case, obviously this was the big news of the past week. We're not going to spend as much time on it this week as we did in our, harassment and bullying show 2 weeks ago, right. And we wanted last week to sort of not have any talk of that, get back to the Magic, as it were,
right.
And this week we'll have a lot of that as well, but this was certainly the big news of the week when it came to the Magic the Gathering community and the world, and we're the View, we're a Good Morning America, that's who we are for Magic the Gathering, and so it definitely needs to be touched on. I think that first step is definitely the word, or the combination of words, specifically first. This is not over yet. To say to all the people who would say something along the lines of like, oh, that's just old news, I can't believe this, here we go again with this garbage. It's not over yet. Even just today, members of the community are being attacked online and targeted. One of the most repulsive to me being that Dana Fisher has drawn the eye of Mr. Jeremy Hambley at this point, which I think is pretty reprehensible. And the fight is ongoing in all games, and not just Magic the Gathering. This is part of the world that we live in, not just gaming, but the internet culture and all of that kind of stuff. And it's unfortunate, but I definitely think that the first step that Wizards of the Coast has taken is a good one.
Yeah, and the thing I want to focus on here, out of everything that we could talk about, I really want to focus on Travis, because I think that he can come back from this. It's a year. We've seen other people come back from short bans, right, and even from longer bans or suspensions as well. I think that Travis has an eye for the game that not everybody else has. I think that he has a very unique skill set, and I think he can do this. And I think even Jeremy can to a certain degree. I don't feel that... I've been very open about, comebacks and redemption and things of that nature. And so when I look at people who've done things like this, I don't see finality there. I don't see cases like this and say they're just done. Stick a fork in them, they're done. I think there's ways they can both play this and still come back from where they are right now. And I hope that they can, specifically Travis. I've been following Travis. Travis is the reason that I started playing Modern. Living End was my first deck. I still have the little folder on my computer with the bookmarks of all of Travis's Living End articles. I used to read them like they were the Bible. I would write down the sideboard guides. Like, I had him on my show when I did the deck tease. He was one of the few guests that I ever was nervous around, because having somebody on your show who made your deck is weird. And so I have a great appreciation for Travis ultimately. And I think if anybody can come back from this, it's him. And I hope that he can.
Yeah. I would note that ultimately, At the end of the day, Magic the Gathering is Wizards of the Coast's sandbox. And if they want you out of it, and if they want you out of it forever, they can show you the door. You can certainly talk about it all you want forever and ever, but that's their right. And to be clear, for those who don't know, on Magic Online, you don't own the ones and zeros in their database. I promise you, there's no value in that. Actual zero. You're paying for the access to the service. Yes, it's nice that it has value in some fashion, but by no means is that yours. And they're very, very clear a million times that, like, this could go away at any point. Period. The end.
Yeah. That's the problem with Magic the Gathering Online Digital Objects, which is what the name of the program is. And this is a larger issue, in fact, with other games like Hearthstone or even your iPhone apps. Who owns? You said you bought an iPhone app. Who owns the iPhone app? The owner of the company can just delete it off of your phone. So this is very similar to that sort of law, and it gets into very murky situations that I don't even have any expertise in. And also is very tangential to the overall point of this, which is that he has been removed from the community. Wizards of the Coast has made a business decision at this point. And if the market says that your presence in the community is damaging to the bottom line of Wizards of the Coast, a subsidiary of Hasbro, get ready to not be a part of the community. So he was an overall negative, and they decided that it was not worth the time and energy. Particularly because they felt that he was a drain in social spaces and chasing other people who could have spent money on the game away. That's the purpose of there are other more altruistic reasons for the banned list. There are more people who want to say that we're trying to keep the game clean, and they certainly do. But I think that my overall impression is that the severity is certainly a big part of it, and saying that the one of the only, if it maybe the only lifetime ban ever given out is for someone who is toxic in the environment, not for cheating, not for violent behavior, but for toxicity, and that is a really strong thing to say from Wizards of the Coast.
And my final bit here is that when the reasoning for this action by Wizards is argued that all it was a couple of memes, there's more evidence than a couple of memes. Let's just be clear there. So when they're like, just look at these 3 memes, and that's exactly why I got banned, you're like, that's why you got banned.
And also, jokes aren't funny when jokes aren't jokes. And so the claim of it was only a joke almost never holds water in any context, and it doesn't hold water in this one.
All right. So moving on from the bannings, unfortunately, we're still on the first pick here because bad
this
things
happens the same day.
The same day.
A couple hours earlier, in fact. Yeah.
So the Judge program had an update on the Magic Judge blog about the decertification of a Canadian L3. So there was, and Chris Lansdale was decertified as a result of the Judge Conduct Committee case for sexual harassment. He is not to participate as a judge in Magic events. How he can attempt to re-enter the community by testing for L1 only if the Judge Conduct Committee believes sufficient time has elapsed and Chris has shown appropriate positive change. So, and apparently this has happened previously, that things of this nature have happened previously. I noted on Twitter, I was like, this is the first time it's ever happened. Well, it's the first time it's ever happened publicly, because apparently Chris decided to say something about it. So now there has to be a statement and there has to be explanations. And, as Aaron, you well know, and you well try to tell people all the time, sometimes you just could you just not do the words thing.
I had a number of judges reach out to me after this went public, and they were shook. There were people that knew him. There were people that knew the situation. And it was my understanding that he was told to lay low, that this could have stayed as quiet as the previous case did, or previous cases did. But from what I understand, he couldn't help himself, as they're wont to do, and made a Facebook post and basically made it all about him, about how his career is over and his everything. And then again, just sort of following that playbook of like, girl, girl, like log off, And because that post was made, then there were questions. People who didn't know anything about this suddenly knew about it and started asking questions, to where that committee had to make a public statement. And had he just done what he was asked to do, can you just not tell anybody, we wouldn't know about this. Maybe it would have leaked out or whatever, but it was him not being able to help himself and make that Facebook post that created these questions, to which the committee had to answer in that post. And then it obviously became very public. It made it very high on Reddit, and just that damn playbook of, like, all you got to do is just sit on your hands and do nothing. And and unfortunately he couldn't help himself, and that's why we're talking about it right now.
Yep. Sit on your hands and do nothing is like my go-to, because I will see tweets or comments in chat of shows I'm watching or am a part of, or on Facebook arguments or anywhere, at parties in real life. I will hear people say things, and sometimes the best thing to do is smile and nod and just let it blow over and not draw attention to it. And unfortunately, that's another lesson learned here, that it's always what's the saying, Evan? It's always the refusal that ruins it, or I forget what the saying is.
I can't remember.
It's the cover-up. It's the cover-up.
Oh, not the crime. Yeah, it's not the crime.
It's not the crime. It's the cover-up. This wasn't a cover-up, but this is like similar in that you're making more noise than is necessary, and I think that is a very unfortunate side effect of what's happened here. But the main topic is sexual harassment, being and Magic the Gathering judge program joining in the national conversation. We're having this moment in popular culture about sexual harassment and people being held accountable for it. People like senators and movie producers who are falling under the weight of their own misdeeds. And Magic is no different. And it's the end of 2017. We holding people accountable now, etc. And it's an unfortunate thing, because this guy was a great content producer, and was by all accounts at events from people who I know and respect, said that they knew and respected him as well. And I've had more than my share of interactions with him too, and he was always nice and cordial to me. But you know what? They said the same thing about everybody else that has thus far fallen under the magnifying glass of the sexual harassment allegations. And so this is yet another issue that's not yet over and is still ongoing, I'm sure. And it's going to be continue to be an interesting line to see where it heads.
So let's move on here. We've talked about all the uncomfortable things. Let's move on to something just strictly 100% positive.
For you two, at least. But.
Nice. So Ben Ashbrook, who I believe is part of Magic the Traveling, he is, and he reached out to a lot of creators and a lot of people in the community and said, hey, could you sort of talk about Magic and who you are and what Magic has provided and things like that. And he did a sort of a supercut. It's a couple minutes long. I'm in there for my half second. Ruben got his half second or two, and Aaron did seconds. But
yeah,
we still love you, Aaron. You're still great. It's sometimes apparently John Finkel's answers didn't all get in there, but
I think what it really was that they could only use such small clips, and I just squeezed so much awesome into that clip that he was like, we can't, and so I get it.
Yeah.
So we have.
I was surprised I showed up at all.
Well, honestly. I still have the file where we recorded our bits, and I'll post that up on the channel either tomorrow or the next day, so people can see that, and it was fun and it was neat, but it was just nice to have this. Magic is awesome. Magic is great. Here's something cool from the community about how cool and awesome the community is, and what people like about it, and what people get out of it, and that was nice to have just 100% awesome positivity thing.
I'll take your word for it.
I loved it. Oh well.
Wow.
The video was fun and interesting, and it is a bit unfortunate for Erin that she was not able to get her moment in the sun there.
Wow. I thought that was going to be 100% positive, but
look, from every cloud a little rain must fall.
So moving on from there, the end of the year is coming up, which means we're going to have the 2017 Magic Mixies. And let me tell you, I am really excited. For those who don't know, we have a sort of a little award show where we give out things like dumbest WotC move or smartest WotC move or hashtag of the year. We have in memoriam.
We get dressed up.
Yeah. Well, I'll dig out a tie I promised last year.
Right. Last year you promised that you'd wear a tie.
I wore a dress, and I had a full face of makeup, and I had a necklace on, and
I had a bow tie.
Yeah.
I had a martini bow tie. So yeah. So the topics are going to be the dumbest WotC move, the smartest WotC move, the hashtag of the year. Then we're going to have a brief pause for an in memoriam segment. And then if you can go ahead and finish out the rest of the topics if you want to, Evan. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all right. Well, then we have the most hated card, the most loved card, drama of the year. I have no idea who's going to win that one.
No, we probably know what that one's going to be. But
yeah, right. That was that argument that led to stabbing. 100% there.
Yeah.
Artwork of the year and format of the year. Last year's winner of that being Frontier, by the way.
Right. Probably not winning again.
How adorable is that in retrospect?
One-hit wonders happen. It happens in music. It happens in Magic.
I mean, and we have set of the year, card of the year. Yeah. And that's going to be really, really, really fun. We're going to have that coming up at the end of the year, of course. And, maybe some crazy stuff is going to happen between now and the end of the year. I don't think so, because Wizards really just isn't in the office, just isn't there.
Right. Yeah. That's the big impetus for us running the show. I love that. I love that we do that. If anybody has any other subjects that they want to add, categories, if they want to submit nominees, hashtag the Mixies. THEMICSIES, the Mixies. I'll type it in the chats as well. Mm-hmm. If you guys want to see something nominated, perhaps your favorite art or your favorite if you want to add a new topic of like player or moment or something that you want to see.
I'll create a picture where we have all the categories so people can share it like that. And because, I got a really cool gold graphic, of our imaginary trophy that no one actually gets.
Right.
But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited about it. And let's keep moving on because I love having lots to talk about. You know me. Yeah. All the topics, all the time. So. Yeah. Rivals of Ixalan promos and packaging were revealed partly because, like this always happens, someone gets it at a store, someone takes weird, ugly photos, and then we know something from the set all of a sudden.
Right. Shout out to the unloading dock at Target and Walmart for all of their spoilery goodness.
So the Rivals of Ixalan promos packaging, it's on the screen now. The packaging which they showed, which is really interesting because they note they have 4 of the various factions and 1 for another denizen of the plane. They do not have the Ajani that they had on the mock-up packaging way back when, which is what I was expecting that 5th pack to be.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. So there's 1 representative from each of the 4 factions. And it's weird that they have, because Ixalan's weird anyway, because we have these. It's tough to make when you have 5 colors of mana. It's real easy to make 5 draftable archetypes or 10 draftable archetypes or something like that. But the way they did it with the 4, with pirates and dinosaurs having 3 colors and then merfolk and vampires having 2 colors, it screws up random things that you don't even think about, like this, having 5 arts on the fronts of the packs, and we just have an additional person, I guess.
So that looks really sweet. And now, of course, you have there's the bundle. It's no longer the fat pack; it's the bundle. And you got your booster boxes, and then you have your Magic. You have your Planeswalker decks, which are sweet. You got Vraska and Angrath, and they have all the cards that are exclusive to those, which we talked a little bit about last week. Also talks about the open house on January 6th and 7th. You can get a Silvergill Adept by participating, and this is a full art. It's beautiful. I have no doubt that it's probably going to see play in Standard because it was ridiculous back in the day. Yeah. They print a few good more Merfolk. Rosewater has very clearly noted that there's going to be a Merfolk Lord in Rivals of Ixalan, which I thought was neat. And participate in the league, and you'll get the very fancy Evolving Wilds. And, of course, if you buy a box, we now get to see the Captain's Hook in all its glory.
Which costs 3.
I was right.
Stupid. You're right, but it's stupid.
You're stupid.
Do you really want it to be
stupid.
the thing in standard that kind of, becomes
Do you
standard?
not? Do you not?
I like it.
Pretty dope to have the hook be like the JIT of the standard. Like, I'm here for that.
I would love that. We haven't had an equipment that's like the thing in standard since like Batterskull.
Well,
and
we did have
was
Smuggler's
like,
Copter, which is
sort of like that, but they
adjacent.
they hadn't figured it out yet. You would too if you hadn't gone to elementary school yet, right? Like you need a couple sets to figure out equipment. You need a couple sets to figure out vehicles. They figured out equipment. I would not be unhappy if Captain's Hook was maybe not the JIT equivalent, but the sort of Feast and Famine equivalent, where it's like super powerful. It's in the best decks, and people need to have an answer to it. Yeah. And I don't think that 3-mana Equip for 1 is going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily going to get there, but I would note, and this came from Mike Linneman, which he pointed out at one point that, and we were going to talk about it later, but I want to talk about it now. Sure. There was a Marvel vs. Capcom tournament that had the Infinity Gauntlet as the statue. Sure.
Oh wow!
The statues for the Pro Tour, the winner trophies, I think are just awful, and they're just ridiculous, and they're silly, and there's the thing, and they look like Starburst or something, and
Ambrosia.
Ambrosia, yes, the Jello-y, whatever.
Yeah,
but if Wizards were to take this idea and run with it, and the idea being take an artifact from the set or the block that you're highlighting in the set and make it the trophy. If this Captain's Hook came alive and was the trophy for the Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan champion, that would be amazing. Like, no, it's not what I want in terms of a cup, but I think it's just worlds better than this weird thing that isn't even unique. Like, all those trophies look the same. Like,
that they do.
This would be a really cool, unique thing that would look great on camera, super cool at the time, and would be something we would talk about. Like, ooh, what's the trophy going to be for the Pro Tour this time? Right? They could have a big unveiling.
That would be super cool.
It would be super sweet, and I think Wizards should really take that idea and run with it.
I think that would be great. I think that a pile of gold or like a treasure chest that has the Captain's Hook sticking out of it would be a great idea. Mm-hmm. The other suggestion of using the Immortal Sun as the focal point of the trophy is a great idea. Sure. I think it's a fabulous idea to use artifacts and inventions, famous Magic the Gathering iconic artifacts as the centerpiece and as the reward. I think that would be a fabulous idea.
Fantastic. So anyway, I love that idea. I thought it was great. I really hope Wizards just at least hears the idea. Please listen to it, because I think it's something that you can really latch onto, and that they're all about the theme. They're all about thematic stuff. They're all about sort of reinforcing with the world we're in, and that would do an amazing job. Absolutely amazing. And I believe that is the end of the promos. Is that correct? I'll go in here and check.
No, we have Brass's something.
Brass's Bounty.
Brass's Bounty.
Brass's Bounty.
You gotta deal with the bees, Ruben.
Brass's, courtesy of Admiral Beckett Brass. Brass's Bounty.
Which is a red and
bounty from Admiral Beckett Brass.
Well, we talked about it before, but it's officially official.
Beautiful.
It's really cool. They showed the Friday Night Magic tokens. This is where you saw the City's Blessing, where on the other side is an Elemental, this was a new one. It is a token creature Elemental. It is a 0/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature and return target card named Rekindling Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste until end of turn. So there's really only been a couple Phoenixes in the history of Magic that have been worth a crap. Chandra's Phoenix, I think, was the last great one. And it would be amazing.
Interactive abilities like this with the graveyard, because that's what Phoenixes are. If anybody's ever seen Harry Potter, that's just what Phoenixes do. Shard Phoenix, you're able to buy it back from the graveyard. Chandra's Phoenix come back thanks to burn spells. Shivan Phoenix returned the turn after it died. And this token leads to that idea as well. This one focusing more on the flavor of it has to sit in its egg for a little bit before it comes back as a full-fledged Phoenix, which I think is pretty cool.
Which is super cool. I mean, you kill it or it comes back.
Right, you have to kill the egg now.
Right. I think that's super sweet. And things coming back out of the graveyard, Aaron, that's just right up your alley.
Big fan.
Phoenixes are like a nice midpoint between Aaron and my interests. Days on Fire and things from graveyards. I think it's just
There's a Phoenix that's been seeing play in Modern. I think it's Flamewake Phoenix. It's the one with Ferocious. They've been running it in the Hollow One, the Black Red Hollow One decks. You can sort of get your cheap creatures out there, and then bam, you get a Phoenix, and it's just Christmas land. And
so weirdly enough, there was also some spoilers from Rivals of Ixalan that for whatever reason, well, there was a pretty good reason, but for whatever reason, we didn't really talk about when they first showed up. And I want to talk about them now because it's better late than whatever. And so the first one here we're going to talk about is Storm the Vault. And Storm the Vault is it's another flip card, and it is a legendary enchantment that costs a red, a blue, and 2 generic mana. It's a rare that says whenever one or more of your creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, transform it into Vault of the Catlacan. Is it Catlacan? Catlacan.
Depends on if you're from there. It depends on if you're from there. It's like Nevada. Nice. Catlacan, Catlacan. It's like, it really just depends on.
Because they Catlacan, they can't. Legendary.
That was a lot for me to process.
Legendary land. It is a legendary land that taps.
I have brain freeze now.
It taps to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, or to Larian Academy-esque, it taps and adds blue to your mana pool for each artifact you control, which is amazing.
If Wizards, if we're doing this, if you're letting people have
I know where this is going.
Yeah. And you're letting people have Tolarian Academies, can a bitch get a Bazaar? Come on. I'll take whatever.
Honestly, at this point, if they're going to make Tolarian Academy on the back of one of these, I'd be all right with it. Honestly.
Why not?
Sure. Yeah. It would cost like a colorless, a black, and a green, and trigger at your end step, and you already need 10 cards in your graveyard. But it can be a thing.
Do it.
Absolutely, and that sounds great. So it's nice that you can see that they're continuing the thing turns into a legendary land, or things turns into a land, period. You're finding things, you're exploring things. Mm-hmm. That's super cool. Next up, we have Tetzimoc Death Primordial. Sorry, I almost read the Spanish version.
I love your ability to pronounce.
You should have read the Spanish version. Absolutely.
Morte.
The version that we see is Tetzimoc Morte Primordial.
Exactly. It is a 2 black, 4 generic mana, legendary Elder Dinosaur. Yes.
Nice. Elder. Get that Elder creature type, folks. Love it.
Get you some. It has Death Touch, because, why not? It's a 6/6 that has Death Touch, because you don't needed it.
Sure.
One black, reveal it.
Grave Titan stats.
Yeah, Grave Titan, exactly. 1 black, reveal it from your hand, put a prey counter on target creature, activate this ability only during your turn. When Tetzimoc Death Primordial enters the battlefield, destroy all creatures with a prey counter on them.
That's a super cool ability. Yeah. Because it's like that Oblivion Stone Fate counter dance that you play with your opponents of when am I blowing up? When is the Tetzimoc coming down? Do I just keep playing things? Or do I try to overload? Or do I force them to do the board wipe early? What's the deal here? And it's just a super flavorful ability for, an elder dinosaur to be able to be you're my quarry. And that's who I'm going to attack and to kill. I think it's just a really neat card.
And it's fun because you can only do it on your turn. So, you can't do this shenanigan of play a swamp, go, end of your turn, get your 1-drop, counter on it, whatever. You have to commit on your turn that this is what you're going to do. You're going to show your opponent what's going on. They get to play around it from that point onwards. And that game kind of starts up, just like you mentioned.
I have to apologize at this point. Apparently, Tetzimoc Morte Primordial is Portuguese and not Spanish. So oops. I apologize to all my lupophones out there who speak Portuguese, and for my offensive misgivings. At this point, I can only apologize.
So, and then these all came from, I believe it was Wizards Brazil. So yeah, Portuguese.
That makes sense.
And these weren't meant to be tweeted out, but here we are. So, and the last one is a mythic rare. Awesome. It is the Immortal Sun. It is the story-driven card right here.
Yeah.
The Immortal Sun is a 6 generic mana mythic legendary artifact. Players can't activate loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card. Spells you cast cost 1 generic mana less to cast. Creatures you control get +1/+1. wow, it just does everything.
My first thought when I saw this was, dear God, do not let the workshop decks get a hold of this, because Ancient Tombs and Mishra's workshops are a thing, and being able to slam this on like turn 2 or 3, or even with Moxen, is a bad scene. Like, I'm pretty sure it won't, but there has been interest amongst workshop players of maybe like a one of, or maybe like a sideboard card, but damn it. I'm not looking forward to this.
It's a draw engine. I mean, they aren't using Staff of Nin or anything.
Jack Faded, Jace.
Right, exactly. I mean, it shuts down opposed. See, the reason why this would be better than Staff of Nin, right? Because that's the ability that Shops decks would be interested in, is the drawing an extra card. So this is a step up from that, obviously. Shutting down loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers is a nice bonus, particularly against Dak Faden. To a lesser extent, Jace the Mind Sculptor, but most Shops deck don't really care about a Jace happening. The spells you cast costing 1 less and the creatures you get getting bigger are nice little bonuses, but it's that extra card that's really scary for Shops. Yeah. I'm much more interested in this in Standard, obviously. Yeah. I think that there is certainly going to be a control deck that wants to have the Immortal Sun, and it'll probably go back to Aaron Campbell-style, old-school, non-Planeswalker control. Because you don't want to get got by your opponent's Immortal Suns either. No. So I think that this card's really neat. I'm a little weirded out by it not having the story watermark on it. Yeah. Because this is like the reason for the season, right? Like this is the reason why nobody can leave Ixalan.
Right. And also note that that's a little strange. Whir of Invention is still a card. And that's still a thing.
Oh, bother.
And now the Lantern control decks have picked up on it, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah, so being able to tutor this thing out, it hits every aspect. Like, you're drawing extra cards, your creatures get bigger, all spells you play are cheaper. Not just like creatures, not just like non-creature spells. No, everything is cheaper. Yeah. Your creatures are bigger. Their Planeswalkers do jack, and that's awesome. Yeah. So this is a really awesome, super cool mythic rare. I mean, we weren't supposed to be saying this right now, but whatever.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it doesn't have. Really cool. We have to wait until the rest of the cards comes out, obviously, because we don't know exactly what's going to be in Standard with the Immortal Sun. But based on these 3 cards alone, it doesn't really have a home yet, obviously. With all these energy decks and Approach of the Second Sun and Godfarrow's Gift decks, don't really have any interest in this card. Right. But like I said, we got to wait for more stuff to come out, and I'm sure that this is the kind of card that, as formats shift and change, we'll probably find at least a kind of a home.
Yeah, so we're moving on here. We want to talk a little bit about Unstable. There was a pre-release with Loading Ready Run guys that went super great, and Mark Rosewater was in a squirrel suit at one point.
It was a delight.
It was fantastic. There were a ton of amazing moments that have already been clipped and shown on the subreddit, and getting Shahrazad with Spike at one point from Wedge.
Shahrazad with Spike was a highlight. I really liked Hidden Ninja winning the sub game of the countdown at 1 against Graham, hoisted by his own petard. That was really fun. There was a 3-player game at one point. Thanks to Better Than One.
Nice.
It was quite hilarious. Just the whole event was a delight to watch, and everyone was having so much fun.
I could not look at Morrow without thinking of you, because Morrow was letting his freak flag fly, and I loved every minute of it. But just watching him just sort of lose himself into the shenanigans, all I could hear was your take on it, and I was like, oh God, this is just a moment.
Yeah. Unstable is nuts, everyone.
And it's great. And look, on the business side, still Unstable is blowing up. I'm already hearing word. There's his Earl Squirrel. I'm already hearing
for the rest of the show, everybody.
I'm already hearing, that's going to go back for a reprint. The sales are amazing. It's just, everyone loves it. Every aspect has something for somebody. Like, even if you don't care about anything, you care about the lands. If you want to have fun.
It's not to love about squirrels.
I went to a local game store. Shout out to Extreme Games in Antioch in Illinois Friday night. The boyfriend and I had to pick up some singles and some sleeves, and they had a full house of people who were there largely for Unstable. Lodestone Games in Minneapolis was reporting that they had 5 pods of Unstable going, which is 40 people. Wow. Those are ridiculous numbers that we sure didn't see for Iconic Masters. But
I drafted Unstable at Natural 20 here in Las Vegas. They ran out of Unstable product. I then drove across town to Darkside Games to play the last of their Unstable product.
Yeah,
Wow.
we did a draft with friends on Sunday, and then my employer, shout out to Card Hoarder, sent me a box and was like, "Merry Christmas!" And that's when I have an Unstable box of my own, which I will probably bring to Santa Clara. So I'll be in Santa Clara next month, and I'm just drowning in Unstable, and I'm very okay with that.
That is terrific. Now, it doesn't sell, just to be clear, it's not the best-selling set of the year, but standard sets still beat it. But that doesn't matter. But the point is, it's incredibly successful because everyone was afraid it was going to suck. Everyone was afraid no one was going to buy it. It was interesting to me because I listened to the interview with Mark Rosewater by Graham Stark, which you should totally go check out, and where he talks about some of the older unsets were meant to sort of spice up a draft. They weren't meant to be sort of drafted by themselves, and particularly the first one. The first one was just kind of a nasty mess if you wanted to try to play sealed or draft with that thing. But now with modern sensibilities and different archetypes and different color pairs, like they really work to make it a format with silliness instead of silliness that you try to put a format onto.
Yeah, absolutely. And it plays really nicely. All of it's just an enjoyable draft experience, and I was not expecting that. It's so fun to draft. And it's just like this, it's the surprise of the year to me. That it's so popular, that it's so just much like Magic, as little as Unglued and Unhinged weren't like Magic.
Uh-oh. Did we just oh my God, we tatered.
Am I back?
And you're back. All right. Fantastic.
I think it's also I think it's also no coincidence that it's a happy set in terms of what's going on right now in the community. I think the fact that it's a fun, careless, even Morrow, I think, was doing, these PSAs about, look, we know that you guys tend to be competitive. We know that y'all love to mini-max, but for this draft, for this set, can you please just have fun with it? And I think with everything that's going on and just the general mood, and it's the end of the year, there aren't many tournaments going on right now. I just think it's just a perfect, it's like chicken soup for the Magic player's soul right now. Like, it's just what we need as a community, and it is a lot of fun.
And from MTG Pack Foils, Ruben's connection is sunglasses unstable.
Well played.
That was delicious.
You did it.
Fantastic. So I absolutely expect another unset. I mean, I don't see any way they can't say, hello, it was amazing and great and everybody loved it, and it's silly and has all the silly stuff in it, but
that is Wizards though. Like, you'd think that would be the obvious line of play, but come on.
Sometimes they spoil a whole set 2 months early and have another standard set show up in between it. Who cares? All right. So let's move on here a little bit to unstable events were added to Grand Prix New Jersey due to popular demand. Yet what's missing from GP Santa Clara, Aaron?
Okay, so GP Santa Clara is 23 days out. They did just update the artists, so we now know which 5 artists are going to be there, but we still have no clue what vendors are going to be there. 23 days. Yeah, what is your life?
We're on day 3 of the GP Santa Clara Advent calendar. So once you've opened your little box and taken out I mean, I'm Jewish. I don't know what's in an Advent calendar. I'm assuming chocolates. So we're on day 3 of the Advent calendar and still no list.
CFB, man, come on, guys, come on. Get your poop together. Get it all together. Put it in a backpack, all your poop, so it's together. And if you got to take it somewhere, take it somewhere, Take it to the poop store and sell it. Or put it in a poop museum. I don't care what you got to do, but you got to get your crap together. Come on.
But adding unstable events to Grand Prix New Jersey is like kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
That speaks to just how popular the event is, and how popular the set is. So kudos to them for stepping in and doing that.
Absolutely. Now,
New Jersey.
Now, one of the things that they, literally was waited to the day it released. We just did not know what AskUrza.com did. And now we know. There are 20 different abilities that could happen with its +1, -1, or -6. and they cycle through each other. Actually, a programmer friend of mine like dug into the code, and like you can go in there and see like what's the array of all the different abilities, and they rank the abilities, and they choose different rankings depending on when you click on it. Like it's actually pretty clever stuff. And people have made like sort of the IRL version where you can have 20 different abilities on 3 cards. From the proxy guy did that.
I saw somebody made a big 20-sided die out of paper that had the various abilities written on each of the facets, which I thought was pretty sweet.
Yeah. So,
and I hope they update it as new sets come out, because that would be really entertaining for me, is as new Planeswalkers are printed, new abilities start popping up on AskUrza.com.
Right.
I just clicked it myself. Apparently, my +1 Urza, it becomes a 4/4 red dragon with flying, indestructible, and haste until the end of the turn.
Nice.
So that's then I have a -1 of destroy target creature. I gain life equal to its toughness.
Okay.
And its -6 is put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. So a little bit of Sarkhan, a little bit of Sorin, a little bit of Liliana in my combo.
I like it.
Stuck in the middle with you. All right.
Yeah.
So Asgard's in and of itself was really cool. I really liked how they set it up, and it was nice to have that one last little thing that no matter how hard we tried, we had no idea how it was supposed to work.
Yeah.
Until the day it released. And I think that's awesome. I hope they do more of that stuff, because Lord knows we like spoiling the crap out of everything.
Oh, yeah.
We don't, but we do. But we don't.
But we don't.
I was that kid. I was the only child who, I would try to shake the boxes, for Christmas time. I would try to peel the corner of the wrapper just to see what was in there. Like I was that kid.
Oh, absolutely. There was something.
The one thing I would say about Urza that's a problem is it's really hard to draft 5-color in unstable. So there's no Gift of Paradise. The best you got is like that artifact that I have one right here, but it's the artifact that if you roll a die and get a 4 or higher, you can add a mana of any color to your mana pool. It's really tough to get 5-color to work. So you really got to work hard for your Urza.
Well, I guess
a bit of a downer.
I am never going to be able to get that in my head now. She works hard for the Urza.
Mad Science Fair Project. That's the one.
There we go.
So
I was looking for.
You guys got to see it in action. How did contraptions work in the real world?
Do you want to go first?
Do you want the sober me or drunk me?
That's also a question.
We'll take the newly sober version of this one.
I still don't like them. I still think there's too much going on. I'm still not 100% clear. I'm about 75% clear what they do, but drunk me was belligerent. Like, this is ludicrous. And I still think it's just too much work. I forget to crank it all the time. I mean...
Sometimes you just got to crank that sprocket, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes the basement gets flooded, and you don't crank the sprocket like you're supposed to.
Well, if you're gonna forget to crank it, then that's why you're cranky. In any case, I thought they worked great. I drafted a blue-black control deck that, if you draft a card like Finders Keepers, which is 5 colorless and a black, it's a sorcery. It says destroy target creature, then assemble a contraption. Now, that's a lot. 6 mana is a lot to just destroy a creature. But traditional Magic sets have, destroy a creature, make a 1/1, or destroy a creature, its controller loses 2 life, or something along those lines at the common in black. Contraptions are a lot more varied. There's a lot more RNG, obviously, in the contraptions that you draft, because some of the contraptions are completely busted, and some of them are okay, and some of them are actively bad. In depending on how you draft your deck. But I still found them to be the amount of incremental advantage that I want, particularly when you're drafting a controlier kind of deck. I thought that they worked really well. If you have really bonkers ones, like I had a Fairy Airy, that is basically every 2 turns draw 2 cards, every 3 turns draw 2 cards and deal 2 damage, which was kind of unbelievable. That I then started stacking with, target creature gets +X+O, where X is the number of creatures you control, or target creature can't be blocked this turn, and it was able to combo contraptions together. I thought that they were really interesting. It added a new play element to a game that's already perfect. Magic's already great, but it added a sense of whimsy and fun and RNG that gave you just a little twinge of Hearthstone, just a little bit of that extra dice rolling aspect that I thought was really nice. And I thought they played really well. Now, I was able to grok them super easily. I wasn't drunk when I first saw them, so it was much easier for me to figure them out. But I think that they're fun in small doses. You're right that it is a lot. And I wouldn't want them in Legacy or Vintage or any other of those old formats. But in this little bit, I certainly think that it's worth revisiting Contraptions and in the next unset.
I would be happy with Contraptions in Standard and or Legacy or whatever.
I mean, if they could figure out a way to do it, then sure.
I mean, and it's fun. I like to do like I'm not a finance guy. I'm not a speculator dude. But I was like, these cards very well could be, if these are ever playable in Legacy. I bought 4 Fairy Aries, and I'm just gonna put them in a little sleeve. Just gonna put them somewhere. Don't think about it.
Just in case.
Just in case, because if those things are legal, that's
mythic Contraptions. Yeah.
Yes, that is the one I absolutely think would make an impact in Legacy or Vintage, because the ability is insane. For free, 2 damage, 2 cards. Okay, sure. All right, so moving on here, I think it's no real secret, particularly amongst the community, that the Magic card quality has not exactly been amazing. And many believe, and many can really demonstrate, that cards they bought a long time ago versus cards they bought last week have a very different way of handling humidity, the way they warp up, even in climate controlled environments, and it was funny because the professors made an entire video about this stuff. Rudy's talked about it, and I think there is a point. I think there is something regarding like Wizards can't say anything because there's culpability there. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, but what I do know is that if Wizards Legal says something, Wizards Legal is the final word ever. If Wizards Legal said, hey, don't talk about this, they will never talk about it. You don't go back to Wizards Legal and be like, well, can I just say... No. Wizards Legal just comes from on high, and you ain't going to say jack. So,
right.
But...
WotC staff.
Yeah, for sure. And but it was interesting because there was a job posting recently that I didn't properly note here because I'm having a hard time finding it. There was a job posting for a quality assurance engineer, a product quality assurance engineer, and someone who essentially knows printing processes very well. And here you go, the product quality assurance engineer job. And what's this role all about? Well, it ensures the quality, integrity, and consistency of printed card and game products for global supply chains and markets. The person in this role ensures that Wizards products meet global requirements for product safety compliance. He or she also defines, plans, and implements quality and reliability requirements for printed products. So that is just one of those things that if you were going to react to the news that the card quality is bad, yet you can't say anything, but you want to do something about it. Wizards clearly, I think, is doing something about it.
And this is an interesting job posting for another reason for me, which is most job postings, and I've certainly applied to Wizards of the Coast for a number of job postings, and I've done a number of interviews in the past. And so I've looked at a lot of these job postings. Most of them do not require a master's or even reference having a master's. This one says master's degree preferred, which is what that MS refers to in the education and training section. Now, obviously, that's not the bottom line. And a lot of the Wizards of the Coast jobs don't even require any college degree. They just require a high school degree.
Right.
But you need to have other life experiences on with that. There's a bunch of stuff that you need to have for this job that leads me to believe that they are taking this very seriously. And so even though nothing has been said publicly, this is certainly a leaning in that direction of, where, we may not be internet lawyers, but we are certainly internet investigators, and we can certainly discern that this is going to be a topic going forward. Because it's an issue.
We can draw our own conclusions, as it were. So, So that was really interesting. This past, what was it, week, I believe, when they did the Vintage Masters draft on Magic Online?
Yes.
It just went live today.
Oh, just live today. Okay. At which point we learned there were at least 1 or 2 cards that were not working. 3 that were not.
Three.
I know Masticore.
3?
Masticore had no upkeep.
Yeah, so Masticore did not require you to discard cards. Cursed Scroll would not let you name lands, and Reviving Vapors would not give you life.
Wow.
Well, that's
To which Lee Sharp had to make a tweet basically admitting that the set was a last-minute idea, or that the draft was a last-minute idea, and that they weren't able to do as much testing as they wanted to, and so there are going to be bugs, but that they are addressing it as quickly as possible. So he was transparent about it. But shout out to Gabby Sparts, because she was an exterminator just catching all these bugs, and she was just, I visited her stream earlier, and she was like, I've been playing maybe an hour, and she's already spotted 3 cards. Sperling also was doing a good job calling things out.
Yeah. Right.
But it was just absurd.
If you thought Masticore was broken before #Deep Analysis, boy, let me tell you how good it is when you don't have to pay any cost during your upkeep.
Yeah.
Holy hell!
It's just bananas. But here's what I want to take away from this, and what I would, if those from Wizards are listening, I want to encourage them to continue to experiment. It's okay. Yeah, some of these cards didn't work right. Yeah, maybe there could have been some more testing, but the idea was really cool. I thought the idea was great. The original Power 9 in the original frames, super sweet. So, like, keep that up. Yes, be transparent if it goes wrong. Yes, fix it as soon as you possibly can. But I still want to encourage really fun stuff like this that they can do with the program.
We have word here that there's another one that's broken. Krovax the Cursed is bugged.
Oh, no.
Goes down to a 1/1 rather than up to a 5/5 if you sacrifice a creature to it.
Wow.
All right, then.
So be on the lookout for bugs, everybody.
Yep. Get bug catcher suits on.
Now, to be fair, Vintage Masters is a ton of fun to draft. It is a really fun set, but unfortunately, some of the cards don't do what they say.
That is unfortunate. Now, there was an interesting interaction this past week from Channel Fireball that was championed by Tolarian Community College, our buddy the professor, and he wanted to see a Pauper event at Grand Prix. And so here's the tweet: based on player feedback, championed by Tolarian College, we are adding a Pauper double up event, which means twice 2x prizes, to each of our January events on CFBEvents.com. 3-round Swiss MTGO ban list. This is awesome. This is great.
Yeah.
This is your chance for those who play Pauper, who like Pauper, who are interested in Pauper. Go over there and pull up the MTG Goldfish Pauper metagame. I think that's the best way you can learn about a lot of Pauper decks really quickly.
Absolutely.
It's also it's also the ability for you to see what are the hot cards in all those decks, because if this happens, if it takes off, and if it's a thing, all of those cards are going to get more expensive, and all the original versions and all the foil versions.
Absolutely.
And it's really cool because, and it's sort of like what happened with Commander. Commander was unbelievably awesome for stores. Commander sold cards that no one ever bought. Pauper can sell cards that no one ever buys, and that is a thing. And people can get really excited now about what commons are in sets. And I think the thinking has always been, Pauper's not good enough for as a Grand Prix format. It's like the main event format, because the cards themselves are fairly cheap and easy to get, or they're really expensive because they're super old. There was only like one maybe 2 versions of something made. So it lives in that really weird world. But if we could just get some large side events, if we could actually get some reporting on this stuff, we'd actually get to see the decks that won. That stuff just starts turning the wheel. And whereas I think Frontier was a really cool flash in the pan last year that we gave a lot of respect to, Pauper's been around longer. Pauper is still exciting and interesting. Things happen in Pauper because these master sets downgrade a lot of cards, and that gets really, really sweet, really, really fast. And I think this ability to shine a light on it is great, and I encourage those who have any interest in the format to enter these events and show that you want this stuff to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, cost is still very much a barrier for a lot of people to getting into the formats that tend to see a lot of competitive play, like Standard and Modern, and certainly, Legacy and even Vintage. And so, this is a way to not only bring more people to events that maybe, couldn't afford them, especially with the high cost of playing in main events. It's up to $70, $80 just to play in a main, not including the cost of your deck and everything. And so this is a way to get maybe a different audience to your events. And, it's also a really great way to too, we've seen GPs sort of struggle with what do you want to be? Like, what is your identity? And we've seen some GPs sort of move into convention territory where they don't want to be just a main event. Like, they want to have cosplayers and panels and things of that nature. And so this is another way to take another step in that direction of, well, we have this nifty main event, but we want to give people who don't do mains, or something, just other things to do than just the main event. And so I think it's a win on all fronts, and I look forward to seeing if it pans out for them.
And I want you to report back at Santa Clara, where this is an event that we know will be at Santa Clara.
Absolutely.
And so tell us, how what's the excitement level? Not just what's the numbers, because we can see the numbers, but what's the excitement level? Are people like actively traveling to GPs just for this event? Because I saw some of that on Twitter, is that people are like, oh, I might have to change my plans and actually go to Houston or London or whatever else there is near the beginning of the year because it's having this event. And that would be really interesting to see.
I will certainly report back.
Excellent news.
So let's move on here to a little bit of splash damage, and we're going to in just a moment because I don't have the thing set up right. Whatever.
Hashtag professionalism.
So professional.
Yeah.
But the can you tell us a little bit, Aaron, about the Call of Duty event and what happened there?
Oh my goodness, yeah. So this past weekend, there was a Call of Duty Open, if I understand it correctly. I don't necessarily play the game. The Call of Duty World League Dallas Open that was taking place. It was the first LAN competition of the new league season, and it was delayed because authorities had been alerted to a bomb threat at the convention center in Dallas, Texas. This was actually the second bomb threat that had been called in over the course of the tournament.
Wow.
Spectators, players, and staff were evacuated around 5 p.m. Eastern Time Friday after authorities were alerted to the threat. And this is just wild. One of the things that we've talked about before is the possibility of, not that we want it to happen, but, GPs are very vulnerable events. There's thousands of people there. A lot of times there's just a couple of, venue security there. We really don't have any legit security. And there's tens of thousands of dollars worth of cards there. And what could happen if, God forbid, someone wanted to do something? And to me, this just sort of seemed an extension of that theory of we've never had anything like this happen before. But to see this happen to something much larger than us in the esport arena is kind of scary, that this happened twice over the course of the weekend. They evacuated, and like, what would we do? We've never had to deal with anything like this. And so it was very scary to think about and to see happening.
Now, fortunately, this was a hoax. Obviously, this was just someone calling in a bomb threat and scaring people, as opposed to there being any tangible, physical evidence of any attack. But I think they're still on the lookout for who called it in. But somebody called in and said, I've put 2 backpacks of explosives inside the convention center. And so, and this was not a small event either. This
$200,000 prize pool.
Yeah, this is a $200,000 prize pool. This was the kickoff event for the 2018 Call of Duty league season. People from around the world were descending upon the place. People from big teams were here. Hundreds of esports athletes had come to Dallas for this event. And so this was a big deal. And we've talked about what we do at Magic events, but it looks like this was at a convention center, and lots of Magic events are also at convention centers. And it seems like the Dallas Convention Center had protocol for this style of bomb threat, or this style of threat in general. And so I'm hopeful that something similar, the protocols would be similar if something happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, and I do think, and someone in the chat mentioned it, that it's very much like swatting a streamer. It's very sort of weird, it's sort of extreme. It's like we live in some kind of new paradigm now where this is actually a thing, and it's just kind of icky. It's like, could we not do this? I mean, I don't know. All right, so, but we got to talk about this next thing because it actually impacted us, which was Patreon came up with a terrible idea. It stayed a terrible idea when they tried to go back and say, hey, here's some more information about that terrible idea.
Right.
And then today they came to their senses, and at least I can give them that. And they said, we're sorry. We're not rolling out the fees change. The fees change itself was this huge kind of, oh my God, it's even hard to explain
I was just going to say, can you explain what they were doing? Because I still am sort of at a loss. I guess it's a moot point at this point.
Right. Ultimately,
but I didn't understand what they were trying to even accomplish.
The elevator pitch was that the patrons were going to pay all of the fees, and the creators were not. And the creators were going to be able to get a steady source of income because it depends on when you signed up to be a patron of someone, as to when it actually takes the money from you. And so that ebbs and flows versus saying, I think this new system was supposed to be at the end of every month, whatever, like it just happens and every one of your patrons or whatever gets it. I don't know. The point is, and I think that was backwards, but forgive me, because the point is it was confusing, but ultimately it meant that those who sponsored people at very low levels, they were going to have to pay, like, I know they're 3.5% plus, or 35 cents plus some sort of percentage fee. It was just kind of a hot mess. And they didn't say something like, there's a little checkbox that says we don't want any of this.
Yeah, that's weird. And it felt like Patreon was saying specifically to smaller channels, and we qualify still as a smaller channel. I mean, it felt like they were saying we only want our top 20% of earners, quote unquote. We don't care about the rest of you at the bottom of the barrel here. And it was specifically targeted against like $1 contributions, which I thought was strange, or like low-level contributions where, people sometimes don't want to give a whole bunch of money, but they still want to support their favorite content producers. And that was going to end up costing the content producers money, right? Was like $1 was going to cost us 40 cents or something.
It was going to cost the patrons like 35, 40 cents beyond what it used to be. And so it's like, well, and then, then you have people like, the professor, Clarion Community College, where he makes that video where he was like, hey, could you just give me $1?
Yeah, exactly.
I really appreciate that. Well, now this literally punishes everyone that was supporting him at that level. And it was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah, it just seems like a really big oversight there. It's like, it seems like this was something that I don't know a single content creator that wanted this. The way that Twitter works right now is you get to see likes and retweets and things from people you don't even follow. And seeing the reaction on Facebook, seeing the reaction on Reddit, seeing the reaction on Twitter, every content creator I knew was like, this is a really bad idea. And it sounds like it was a decision that was made at the corporate level. And had they even taken a second to ask creators what they thought of it, or possibly even ask patrons what they thought of it, I don't know any patrons that wanted it either. Like, this was just a resounding no, and it just sounded very tone deaf. Like they just didn't bother to do their research or their market research. And had they spent even after the fact, they met with a lot of creators. I saw some webcomic folks who got to get their ear, and if you had just spent even a week talking to people, you would have known this is a terrible idea. And just what were you thinking?
What was do we know, I'm sure we can find this detail, but are you familiar with the ratio, the internet ratio of if you have more replies than you have likes and retweets, that's a problem? Basically is what it is. For example, the person who has the worst ratio on Twitter is Paul Ryan, just in case you wanted to know who has the worst ratio. But I got ratioed when I said that a little while back when I tweeted out an unpopular opinion about Star City Games Live. Everybody gets ratioed sometime in their life, and it seems like they certainly got ratioed here with the replies and the instant articles and long Twitter threads about people not liking the changes, and it took them not very long to walk it all back.
Yeah, so I looked up the old post, and they wanted to start on December 18th a new service fee of 2.9% plus 35 cents will be paid by patrons for each individual pledge. Can you imagine?
That's insane.
It's just ridiculous. I support 10 people for $1. Now I'm suddenly paying $3.50 more plus 2.9% on top of that for the privilege of those 10 creators getting my money. Like,
that's an extra $50 a year in dollars, in pennies at a time, are becoming barrels of pennies. So there was certainly some groundswell for other Patreon-like services to move away from Patreon, but it just left a bad taste in everybody's mouth.
Well, and there's not many games in town. Like, Kickstarter has something that they started, but it's like invite only or whatever. It's called Drip.
Right. Sure.
And yeah, you could directly support us via PayPal or whatever, but I can't post content just to those people who support us that way. I have no idea how the Kickstarter thing works. Who wants to start at ground zero in a totally different service anyway? You know, we're in Patreon sandbox, you know, and they decided to change the rules, and I'm super happy they listened to everybody, because it was a huge mess up, and they fixed it, and that's great. But
yeah,
how do you go back?
If you wanted to get in on the ground floor of a Patreon competitor, the last 3 days certainly would have been a good point to do it. But it seems like that window might be closed, although there's still that bet in everybody's mouth. So maybe it's not. Maybe your new thing is like, hey, Patreon for people who won't randomly crap on your dollar donations, right?
Yeah.
Right. It was just weird, in that, you know, the more I learned about it, the angrier I got. And we lost a few patrons, sure, but the by and large, they all stuck with us. Thank you very much. But other creators, I mean, I think legitimately so. I mean, like, when someone's trying to support 15 people or whatever, and they, you know, that $15 a month was right there, suddenly it's beyond that. You're paying $5 more out of nowhere plus 2.9%. You're like, okay.
I think that's more evidence of them being tone deaf. It's like, you know, there was a point where it almost seemed like they were trying to put the blame on people who maybe don't pledge very much, as if to say, well, that just means you need to pledge more. And again, had they talked to the creators or even talked to the contributors, you would know that most of us have a Patreon following because of the 50 people who give us $1, which we're super grateful for, and we thank you for all of that. But not everybody's giving you $5 and $10 or $15. The majority of Patreon money are the folks who, because that way they can give to more people. They can give MTA $1, and they can give, you know, us $1 and the professor $1, and that's a good thing. And again, had they done any sort of research, you would know that most of your people aren't balling. They're not giving out dollar bills to people. They're spreading it out to help more people. And it was just to me more proof that they didn't do their homework. And while we're on the subject of Patreon, I just want to kind of talk about this, that we're also we're going to be revamping our Patreon for next year. So if y'all have any ideas of things you might want for rewards, we're more than happy to listen to you. We've certainly taken stock of some things that we feel may not have really worked over the past couple of years, and we're definitely open to trying some new things. And also, we're working really hard to get our tokens to you. They look fantastic, and we're so close. And so we just want to say thank you, and that we appreciate everybody for sticking with us this long.
Yep. Yeah, we even rolled out one of those new things, which is our Patreon only pre-show for this live show is really popular. We are also our very first unedited top 10 was posted. It seems like it was a big hit. If our subreddit is to be believed. And so we have some more stuff coming down the line, particularly for you Patreons. Let us know what you'd like added or what you don't think is really worth it. But for the time being, we're going to stay on Patreon until maybe something better comes along. So.
Yeah. So the tokens that we're getting frames finished. We're getting the back finished. It's very, very close. We're going to make them. We're going to send them to our patrons. We're going to explain how all that stuff works. We're going to change our Patreon a little bit because it's been the same way basically since day one.
2 years.
Which is pretty awesome. We've been talking about Magic for so long.
I know.
which is terrific. And we appreciate, of course, everyone sticking with us this whole time. Now let's go ahead and do a giveaway winner because apparently I accidentally set it for a year. Oops. instead of an hour. Like, this is 2018.
Right.
See who the real fans are if they stay for a whole year.
All right, and we have our winner from Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Christopher D. from YouTube.
Oh, I think I know him.
If you may or may not know him, Mr. Christopher D., thank you very much for entering in the contest. Please, I will give you an email over the next day or so. Look for it. We'll figure out a way to get you your D&D book as soon as possible. Thank you, everybody else, for entering. There were over 550 entries, I believe. No, almost 600.
Wow, very cool.
Which is super cool. So, congratulations to him. And with that, we're going to turn the corner to the finisher. Now, tonight is the second night of Hanukkah, a Jewish holiday commemorating Judah and the Maccabees' successful rebellion and rededication of the Holy Temple and the miracle of lights, when just a small amount of oil miraculously lasted for 8 days in the Second Temple in Jerusalem. Today I learned. It's a celebration that follows the classic Jewish holiday formula. They attacked, we won, let's eat. And eat we do, with latkes and kugel and sufgan iyot.
Almost.
Sufganiot, I think, is a better way. So I can just
Sufganiot.
Sufganiot.
There we go.
So southern. and plenty of other unpronounceable...
They're little jelly donuts. It's nothing big. Don't worry about it.
And plenty of other unpronounceable delicacies, but there's still plenty of time to celebrate. So if you were to have a holiday commemorating your victory over impossible odds and miraculous circumstances, what foods might we expect to be served at your celebrations, Aaron?
Well, there's really only one flavor that encapsulates the feeling my opponents get when they lose a battle to me of historic proportions. So, if you're planning on celebrating Campbell's Day, you better stock up on plenty of salt.
Salt canisters at the ready. Rock salt.
Maybe some tea to wash it down.
Salt and tea. I like it. Ruben?
Yeah.
Well, obviously the only thing that could possibly be served on a day observing my historic greatness would be Reuben's sandwiches. Delicious deli delicacies recognized the world over for being the only publicly acceptable way to ingest sauerkraut. And what better way to enjoy a good corned beef on rye than on the perfect day to observe my illustriousness and repute, Ruby's Tuesday.
Lord.
Well, look, the best way to celebrate Irwin's Eve, which is, of course, the night before Irwin's Day, which takes place during the 12 days of Irwin during the Irwin holiday season, is for you and your loved ones to sit down by the hearth, tuck in your napkins, and dig into a hearty, traditional Irwin's Eve meal of delicious, delicious bacon on your cheeseburger.
Love it.
That's
there
right.
We go.
And that ends another episode of Magic Mike's. Thanks for joining us here live to discuss all things magic. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. Happy Irwin's Day and Campbell's Day and Ruby Tuesday.
We're going to move here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching or listening, and hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Visit our website at MagicMikesPodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters, or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv/MagicMikes, on Twitter at MagicMikesCast, on Reddit at Reddit.com/r/MagicMikes, on Facebook at Facebook.com/MagicMikes. Talk to us privately at MagicMikes. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week. Same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.